Hey, 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 I'm live. It's been a while, but I'm dipping my toes in the water today. But let me assure you, folks, there's going to be a lot more where this came from because yeah, construction season is finally over, and I've done all the things that I need to do, not just in terms of my employment in the construction trade, but all the other things, so that I've at least allotted myself some time to get back into the business of talking about the events of the world from a philosophical lens, with an ethical lens, because as we're seeing out there today, and ever since the first initial attack, what was it, October the 7th, I believe it was. From then until now, I've been hearing. I mean, it's not like it shocks me, right? I'm sure you folks too, have become so accustomed to, you know, the thought leaders in the establishment, right? Or the ruling class constantly playing the us versus them, the identity politics, looking at everything through a collectivist lens, right? Through a tribalist lens. And that's right there. I mean, in reality, I could say a couple sentences and tie it up and pretty much feel that in addition to the 13 or 1400 videos I've done in the past, pointing out almost all of them at the very least, point out the importance of dealing with each other as individuals rather than part of some collective or a group or based on some immutable characteristic in terms of our skin color or what's between our legs. Once again, this is the thing, and this is the area where libertarians in particular, classical liberals as well, actually, the people who understood and the people who understand today, the few of us who are left, right, that understand the importance of, when you're talking about dealing with human beings, of dealing with the actual individuals involved when you're talking about, you know, current events or scenarios such as wars or conflicts, right? The individuals, right? Individual accountability. When you talk about people from the lens of or perspective of being part of a group or a tribe, once again, that obscures the personal responsibility. And I'm all about personal responsibility and accountability. That's the whole point. That's the emphasis, right? Of self ownership, property rights, and the non aggression principle, the three core tenets and principles of libertarian thought and philosophy. Anyways, we're going to get to all that. Don't worry about that. That's coming. I did want to, just because, as per usual, you got to give people some time to get the notifications, right? Or to find, the links and to get here. Once again, this one's being streamed to YouTube. I was going to add Facebook, but unfortunately, until I up my level on my streaming software, until I up it to the next level, I'm only allowed to have 3. So I picked. This is being live streamed on YouTube. It's being live streamed on Rumble, and it's being live streamed on X, formerly known as Twitter, aka Elon Musk's platform that he has taken over. And boy, is he ever? I mean, I know he's definitely solid in the fact that he's sure he's on the right foot, on the right track, and doing what he did. But you got to know there's been some moments of regret, right? For sure. But anyways, before I get to the most important topic, I just wanted to bring this one up because I just wanted to point this out, since Elon Musk is going to be part and parcel of this story, or anyone that's delving into talk about with this conflict with any nuanced position whatsoever, right? Or taking a perspective that's not handed to them, right? Or espoused word for word verbatim from the establishment media, right? No. And that's the thing. That's the point of having freedom of speech, right? Really, freedom of speech. Speech is just your thought put into words. So freedom of speech, when you think about it, it's freedom of thought. And don't fucking tell me how to think or what to think, right? And fortunately, Elon Musk is the same for the most part, but he's getting pressured from many different angles and sides, right? So, anyways, and I will emphasize too another point a little bit later on in the glaring hypocrisy of people who are typically against identity politics or playing the us versus them in terms of tribalism or collectivism, right? But yeah, so I just wanted to bring this up. Actually, I'm not even going to bring this onto the screen. It's not really even worth it. It's a CBC News article under the science section. SpaceX Starship test flight fails minutes after launch. Mission Control loses contact with spacecraft after second attempt this year. And if you read it, I'm not tell you the truth. I'm not even going to really read much of the article. I don't want to waste much time. More or less, let's just call this filler and tell people, right? Come to the stream, get comfortable, get their drink of choice or their snack of choice or whatever, and sit down and let's just talk about this stuff once again with a proper philosophical and ethical lens, right? From using first principles and logic and reason, and once again, ethics as the guides that form my thought and my opinions. But yeah, so basically what I'm going at with this whole thing is it's so typical. It's so typical of the folks at the CBC to be resentful and have such disdain and seemingly impossible because we disagree with their politics. They lack the capacity or the maturity. Let's just say it. Let's call a spade a spade. They lack the maturity, the intellectual maturity, right? To say, you know what this man is doing with that company and this massive. I mean, you see the size of that thing, right? Like that starship, like that that spaceship. That's just phenomenal. It's a huge, massive undertaking of humanity to create something like that. And we all know that these things, you're going to have failures before you succeed. That is what it is to try to do something that nobody has done before. And that is what Elon Musk and SpaceX have attempted and successfully done multitudes of times now, right? Oh, it can't be done. And yet he did it so on so many levels in so many ways. And I can't help but emphasize point of the fact that this is a man that the left, the environmentalists should just adore the guy, right? And they would if it wasn't for the fact that he just happens to disagree with them. It's key aspects of politics or some of the current events that are taking place, or it's at least willing to be a little bit more nuanced than most, right? But it's just wild to see this constantly taking place. And as a Canadian myself, it's just, well, I just chalk it up to just another in a long string of these tall poppy syndrome that so many Canadians seem to have or suffer from, right? Lord forbid somebody should achieve or attain any amount of success that they haven't themselves. Oh no, especially like I say, if they have a disagreement in terms of their politics, right? Hmm. Anyways, so yeah, so like I say, it's just I find that kind of thing it's just like I say, it's soul crushing for so many people. I mean, as humans, we should aspire to greatness. And of course, what we can achieve or attain ourselves at the individual level, who knows? But if you can make yourself even a little bit more successful or more whole or achieve something or attain something, that hasn't been done in the past on things that are positive, right? Then, people should, at the bare minimum, if they're not going to applaud you, although I think that would be the proper and appropriate thing to do, at the very least, can you withhold? Can you refrain from publicizing your disdain for the man, right? Can you not just once in a while put aside your pettiness and just allow the people who do such things as what this man has done to enjoy his success and even to learn from their failures without you trying to poke them in the eye? Yeah. Just a minor request, but I don't think that's going to happen. But anyways, going to continue on here shortly. But let me just get into the chat here, see if anyone's got the notification yet. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting back into the streams. I really miss doing these things. Anyways, okay, let's just check in here on the old YouTube. Justin Turtle. Afternoon, hosers. Hey, what's up, hoser? Yeah, right on. Eh? What we got here? It's just a fact. Without personal responsibility, there can't be freedom. So true. So true, Justin. So true. Opinions should be considered immutable characteristics because they're outside of control. Opinions. Well, no, I wouldn't say they're outside our control. I mean, our opinions, what it is, uninformed opinions or curated opinions, I think would be more appropriate. But my opinion, not really outside of my control. I do have some control over what, that's the thing. My opinion is formed based on the kind of things that enter into my mind. And I guess what it is, I guess in a way I can kind of see what you're saying. But ultimately, how my opinion is formed is I consume a tremendous amount of information and perspective from a myriad of different sources, right? Then I use the principles that I already understand, right? The formulas, right? And the ethical stance that I typically take. And that, put all those together, right? X plus Y equals Z, whatever you want to do it is. That's how I form my opinions. But I kind of, in a way, I get what you're saying. Anyways, let me move on to the next one. Yeah, people are fucked. A success like Elon's is a success for humankind and should be celebrated. I definitely agree with that one. Anyways, like I say, just going to kind of slide up into, let me take this comment off here. Slide up into, actually, let me just check and make sure Rumble is rolling along here. I might as well do that. And actually, I should open up X and make sure this live stream is happening on X. That's the one thing about live streaming on X. I still am not sure. So that's why I just tell people to go to my username profile because that's where you'll see it. But I don't ever seemingly get an actual link to share, unlike with YouTube or Rumble, which I get a link that I can share on my other social media pages, right? But I don't seem to get that. Okay, no, I do see on Rumble, everything seems to be looking good over on the Rumble. Oh, actually, I got one sec. I got a couple comments here over on the Rumble. I wonder how I can bring that. Is there any way to bring Rumble up? I wonder if I actually bring this into. Oh, that would be weird if I did that, wouldn't it? I was thinking about screen sharing the Rumble thing, but then that would probably look pretty weird. It'd be me looking in a camera and me. Enable slow chat, enable large history. Anyways, yeah, because it doesn't show up here for some reason. So I'll just read it. I'll just read it myself. What about people with intergenerational trauma who can't control their actions? And another one. Okay, let me deal with the first one. What about people with intergenerational trauma who can't control their actions? Well, I mean, we all have free will, right? So I get that it can be difficult. There's definitely varying degrees of difficulty in that stuff, depending on the severity of your trauma, right? But I can't agree with the fact that even those, I mean, I have trauma, although I'm not quite sure what you mean by intergenerational. My trauma, I mean, sure, there was trauma from my parents, and my parents probably had trauma, to them, and so in a way, it's a long line. But me, I'm that trauma. I can only experience the trauma that I've suffered. I mean, I have empathy, but I don't genuinely experience the trauma of others, right? So I can only deal with my own trauma. And I've suffered my own trauma, a tremendous amount of it, since I was a child, a lot, enough to write a book about. But once again, I can never use that excuse to claim victimhood or some kind of deterministic outlook or future for myself. No, I firmly believe in free will. And not only do I believe it, but I'm a walking talking example of using that free will to better myself in spite of the trauma I've suffered or induced, right? So I don't know, but thanks for the question. That's actually a pretty good question, to be honest with you. Now we got another one here. X is not free speech until Alex Jones is back, as well as the dislike button. Well, hey, listen, I won't disagree with you that I've even seen Elon Musk himself struggle, in particular recently with the free speech thing, right? What's that expression? From the river to the sea. And if anyone says that now on X, well, you have the chance of getting banned or suspended. So yes, free speech. Well, right? Maybe not. Maybe not 100% on that. I will say at the very least, though, he seems to be doing much better than most. And at least he's actively not just trying to create a venue that's more conducive to free speech, But at least the man articulates his thoughts and reasoning when he does intervene or interject, right? And tries to clarify things. Now, I'm glad that he's at least willing to not just get some pushback but to refine his thoughts going forward. That's one thing about Elon Musk, and because he has that analytical engineering type of a mind, right? Is he needs truth. He needs proper information. He needs things to be logical and reasoned, right? For him to be able to convey his thoughts properly. And that works in so many other examples of the kind of things that he undertakes. So, right, I'm not saying we should all agree with everything that Elon Musk says or does, right? He's not a god, right? He's a human being. He's fallible like every one of us. But once again, I see him out there front and center, at least trying to do as best a job as I think that he can under the circumstance, which is not easy. I can't even imagine. I mean, I've been attacked personally quite severely and harshly, over the course of the many, many, many years I've been doing this stuff. But nothing even remotely. No spotlight has not as big a spotlight, not even close. Right? Not even a tiny, mine just a speck of light compared to the kind of spotlight that's been put on Elon Musk. And even before he took over X, formerly known as Twitter, right? So it can't be easy. It can't be easy to be Elon Musk. And like I say, I'm just appreciative of the fact that at the very least he tries, right? He tries. And he's willing to engage. That's another thing, right? That there's so many people on the left predominantly, but even those on the right who just will not engage. I think a lot of the problems, a lot of issues facing us all could be greatly reduced and remedied or rectified if these people, these thought leaders and these so-called experts, if the varied opinions and perspectives, if those minds would just come together and properly articulate their thoughts and hammer out and discuss these ideas. I think that would go a long way in leading by example and showing how it's done. And Elon Musk is the kind of person that would be more than willing to sit down with someone who's his opponent and hammer out those ideas or just discuss the underlying ethics behind the perspectives or opinions, or not just their ethics, but the principles that underlie them as well, right? So there's that. But anyways, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Wake up 2030 is 1984. Thank you very much for your comments, and hopefully you'll stick around and feel free to ask some more. I'll be checking in with others here in a bit. I see I got one more here. I'll just check on this one. Your microphone is going quiet for a bit and then normal again. Oh, you know what that is? I think. Sorry. Thanks for mentioning that, though. What that is, I believe in. I may end up going with my. It's weird because I really like this microphone, but I may end up switching out to my Yeti Pro. Or maybe if Santa is really generous, will bring me an even nicer one. I don't know. But yeah, I've had that kind of issue with this microphone for quite some time for some reason. And yeah, sorry about that. I'm going to have to just try to make sure that I keep the microphone directly in front of my mouth. And I believe the issue should be fixed then. But thanks, Dankus Memicus. Really appreciate you pointing that out. Because yeah, it's frustrating. I know it's very frustrating when that kind of stuff happens. But I'm going to, like I say, I'm going to try to make sure I keep this microphone closer to my mouth so that we don't have that issue as much. Anyways, let's get to this one here. So actually, I did want to say something before so that you folks can watch and observe along as people talk about this, whether you're talking about the thought leaders in the media or people in the ruling class, is everybody. Well, I mean, there might be, I shouldn't say everybody. There's always, we'll leave a little carve out, right? A little exception to the norm for the few who just say whatever the hell without, any underlying ethics or morality, right? There are those out there, I will admit and accept. But if you think about whether you're talking about people in the media, the ruling class, or opinionated pundits, or social media influencers, or experts, right? Everyone that's talking about this conflict are trying to, at the very least, put on the pretense that they're coming at it. Their perspective is informed by some underlying ethic or some form of morality, right? That's what oh, you gotta think of, right? Whether it's your Ben Shapiro's, right? Or your Guardian contributors that are, more apologetic for the Palestinians, right? Or your Ben Shapiro's are more staunchly advocating in defense and full solidarity with Israel, right? No matter which side of the political aisle, and that's basically how this is being played out, as you folks have seen, right? You've had weeks now to see how it's being played out. It's the old binary left versus right, right? Right. The left supports Palestine and the right supports Israel, and one's bad, the other's good, right? Everybody's playing up the moral or ethical stance. That's the lens that they're trying to place on it, right? That's the lens that they're trying to look at this story through, or at least that's what everyone's pretending to. But I would suggest, and I am going to suggest in this live stream right here and right now, is even though they may very well believe that they're taking an unbridled ethical or moral stance, right? Well, I'll just have to point out that it's not universally consistent. You may think that you're taking, and in some small way, you are claiming empathy and sorrow for some, but not all, are you? Now, I'm not even suggesting, of course, I have to be more nuanced than most these days. And I'll point out right here, right now as well, is those people in Hamas, the actual individuals who carried out that vile evil deeds, right? Brought that kind of terror to, as far as I know, the innocent Jewish people in Israel. Then yes, those individuals, each and every one of them who did one of those vile, evil, and despicable deeds to another human being, yes, those people need to be punished severely and retaliated against, right? And that's something, whether you're looking at it from the Christian point of view, the Jewish point of view, right? The Judeo-Christian, right? The Western ethos, right? Or you just use the non-aggression principle or objective logic and reason with that ethical lens, once again, underlying the whole thing. If you look at it, then yes, if your point is, I want to defend and support those who are harmed needlessly or viciously by some other individual or groups, once again, and what is a group? But a bunch of individuals. So hold those people to account and accountable for their vile deeds and actions, for sure. But that does not suggest or even pretend to give anyone the carte blanche excuse or just cause to, in turn, cause harm to innocent people on the opposing side, right? Those are the kind of points that I want to emphasize, is dealing with each other as individuals is how this should be focused on. And the thought leaders who are failing to do that, and I'm saying even the ones in the alternative media, right? And you know who I'm talking about. I don't have to drop a bunch of names. I brought one up in particular, but the kind of people that fight really hard, it seems, to, put themselves or their mind in a position where they're taking a universally ethical kind of stance. What we're seeing, they're not doing that anymore, right? Now it seems to have gotten personal. Now they're making the personal very political. And they're no longer adhering to the universal underlying ethics that usually, as far as I'm concerned, guides their decision and their opinions or perspective. That is a massive failure, and why I feel and felt so compelled to do this live stream today. Because it's very and vitally important that the people of the world, or at least anyone that's willing to listen, know that yes, there are people out here, people like myself, people like yourselves, who are once again going to do what so many people seem to be unwilling to do, and that's bring genuine nuance and a genuinely informed perspective to the table. So yeah, like I say, so let me just get to this here. Um, let me bring this on. Okay. So once again, since I was speaking about Elon and X, here's a CBC News article. No, there won't be a bunch of CBC News articles in this one. Actually, this is, I think there's only two. The rest are from other sources. But anyways, so Disney, this is under the world section. Disney, IBM among companies suspending X advertising in wake of anti-Semitic Elon Musk post. So based on that headline, right? It seems to me that Disney, IBM, as well as the CBC, right? Which are actually just businesses. So there's human beings behind these opinions and these perspectives, right? But sadly, none of them have the audacity, the courage of their conviction to put their names on paper in print and say, yeah, I think this. No, they're flying under the cover of what? A corporation? Which, what is a corporation? It's a legal fiction. It's an entity. It's an act created by legislation, right? It's not a person, even though they pretend or suggest it is, right? No, not a person. But there are people behind these opinions and perspectives, individuals suggesting that Elon Musk is anti-Semitic. That is literally what this headline is suggesting. This is the takeaway that the people contributing to this CBC article are doing. This is what they're trying to do, is trying to tell you that Elon Musk is anti-Semitic, which, I mean, a lot of people call him a lot of names, give him a lot of insults for sure. But being an anti-Semite, never heard that one before. And the only reason why you're hearing it now is because, once again, he's unwilling to parrot the talking points, the narrative, right? And that we're all so used to and accustomed to, and actually willing to push back against it or offer a little bit of nuance himself. Even if it may not be wholly or adequately informed at all times, right? The man is thinking out loud. He's trying to offer up some nuance. If he makes a mistake, or if people make a mistake, once again, let the first infallible man, or how's that expression go? But people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. I guess that's an easy one, right? Show me the infallible human beings behind these perspectives, and I'll say that they don't exist, and because they don't. Anyways, let me just move down here. Post falsely claimed some in Jewish community stoking hatred against white people. So how does the post? So his post falsely claimed some, right? Some in Jewish community stoking hatred against white people. So is this CBC contributor or this Associated Press contributor literally suggesting, it seems like to me, that there's no anyone in the Jewish community who are stoking hatred against white people? Because I tell you, myself, just type in white privilege or white, right? Hate, any of those keywords into my Canadian Libertarian YouTube channel, and you'll see, yeah, I've got countless examples where I've reported on that, yes, those in the established media, and some of them, even those in the established media who have a Jewish background themselves, are definitely playing up. But why does it matter? To me, this shouldn't matter, right? But this is a reality. Elon Musk was speaking truth, that there are some Jewish people. In reality, what he's referencing is, I believe one of them is the ADL group, right? Anti-Defamation League, which is a Jewish organization as far as I'm concerned. But I'm going to get to that a little bit further on, because I'm just going to read a little bit of this, because this would be your left wing perspective, right? And I'll get you the other side of that with the right wing perspective here in a minute, or at least from an outlet that would be considered a right wing. Advertisers are fleeing social media platform X over concerns about their ads showing up next to pro-Nazi content and hate speech on the site in general, with billionaire owner Elon Musk inflaming tensions with his own post endorsing an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Yeah, we'll get to the conspiracy theory. IBM announced this week that it stopped advertising on X after reports said its ads were appearing alongside material praising Nazis. A fresh setback as the platform formerly known as Twitter tries to win back big brands and their ad dollars, X's main source of revenue. The liberal advocacy group Media Matters sent a report Thursday that ads from Apple, Oracle, NBC Universal's Bravo network, and Comcast were also placed next to anti-Semitic material on X. Right. These are literally, basically competitors in the media industry. So little bias there, right? Little conflict of interest, I would suggest as well, right? IBM has zero tolerance for hate speech and discrimination, and we have immediately suspended all advertising on X while we're investigating this entirely unacceptable situation, the company said in a statement. Apple, Oracle, NBC Universal, and Comcast didn't respond immediately to requests seeking comment on their next steps. Walt Disney Co. said on Friday it has paused advertising on X, while Axios reported that Apple has done the same. The European Union's executive branch said separately on Friday that it's pausing its advertising on X and other social media platforms, in part because of a surge in hate speech. That's the thing. So they're saying you could offer up, speech to counter the hate speech, right? But no, because there's someone here, right? Think about it. That's literally because a road, like a platform, it's just a platform. So let's use the roadway. So there's people on the roadway with signs that are saying things that I disagree with. So I'm just never going to travel that roadway ever again. Well, why are you restricting and hinder your actions? Right? For the sake of some people or opponents that you vehemently disagree with. I would say show some fucking courage and some conviction and not just advertise on X, but maybe ramp up your spending and maybe promoting things that are against hate, right? That'd seem like a pretty good way to counter hate, but no, I'm going to run with my lunch and go home. Right? Yeah. Good job. Well, that'll fix things for sure, right? Don't wade in the controversy at all. But meanwhile, these companies seemingly are willing to wade into controversies on a regular basis. But in this example, no, it's a third rail, folks. It's a third rail, right? Anyways, Musk sparked outcry this week with his own post on X, responding to a user who referenced the Great Replacement conspiracy theory was speaking the actual truth. On Wednesday, Musk agreed with an X post that falsely claimed Jewish people were stoking hatred against white people. That conspiracy theory holds that Jewish people and leftists are engineering the ethnic and cultural replacement of white populations with non-white immigrants that will lead to a white genocide. The White House on Friday accused Musk of repeating a hideous anti-Semitic lie on X, calling it an abhorrent promotion of anti-Semitic and racist hate that runs against our core values as Americans. It is unacceptable to repeat the hideous lie behind the most fatal act of anti-Semitism in American history at any time, let alone 1 month after the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. White House spokesperson Andrew Bates said in a statement responding to Musk's post and referring to the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel. So anyways, folks, let me pull this one off because I just want to show you what this is actually referencing. Because yes, even though CBC, and have you noticed that? CBC didn't have no link to Elon's tweet. Did you notice that? Right? Although I'll show you a little bit later on, they referenced a different tweet. There was no direct quotes of what Elon said. There was just the suggestion, right? Well, let me use this source here, okay, and see what actually was said. Okay, I believe this is the one here. Yeah, this is the one. So let me scroll down here. Now, this is the Daily Wire. Let me make sure you folks can see that, actually. Yeah, it's good to go. Yeah. So, CNN's Jake Tapper makes false claims about what Elon Musk said about Jews. So, this is by Ryan Saavedra, November 19th, 2023. CNN's Jake Tapper made false claims over the weekend about remarks that ex-owner Elon Musk made on the social media platform last week. Tapper made the remarks during a Sunday interview with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis while pushing the Republican presidential candidate to condemn Musk for the remarks. Tapper claimed that Musk openly endorsed an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that Jews are conspiring to replace white Americans with minority immigrants. When DeSantis said that he had not seen the comments, but he knew that Musk had been a target of the political left ever since he bought Twitter, Tapper responded by showing DeSantis only a portion of Musk's comments on the matter. The controversy started when Musk responded to the following post on X. Okay, Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of dialectic hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. I'm deeply disinterested in giving the tiniest shit now about Western Jewish populations coming to the disturbing realization that those hordes of minorities that support flooding their countries don't exactly like them too much. You want truth said to your face, there it is. Now, obviously, this is Musk's response. You have said the actual truth, Musk responded. Tapper claimed that Musk later went on to say that he was talking about the ADL and other Jewish groups are pushing replacements of whites. And I mean, we all are familiar with the constant, it's a thing, wording, right? This is what this is this is a lot of legalese, right? And a lot of pushback are coming from the lawyer types, right? So let's try to be a little bit better in articulating and clarifying these things, right? So whether the ADL, that group, those individuals within that group are fully 100% advocating for or endorsing the elimination of white people, the genocide of white people, or the great replacement of all white people, I would suggest no. And I don't even believe that Elon Musk himself believes that. But does the rhetoric that's espoused by individuals within that group and other groups, that whether they're Jewish or any other group, right? Or people on what they perceive as the left, right? Are there any of those people who seemingly at least go along, some of them gleefully, with the concept of targeting or making white people the new victim or the new people to hate on because they're such terrible people because of their inherent privilege stuff? We're all very much familiar with that. And once again, just look through my past videos and type in white privilege or any of the keywords in terms of that, and you'll see where I've covered those aspects quite nuanced, in terms of people in certain groups who seem to be, whether they're advocating for it or not, that's a little bit harder to say. But are they seemingly willing to go along or at least sit on the sidelines or at least never, ever push back against those who do advocate for turning white people into the new group that must be battered down or beaten down and battered for some of their sins of the past or the sins of their forefathers or the sins of people who shared their skin color in the past? Yes, we're all very much familiar with that. So trying to pretend or suggest that doesn't happen, oh, okay. Well, I mean, you can, but you're never going to convince the people like myself who actually witnessed that, seen it with their own eyes, heard it with their own ears. Sorry, you're never going to convince us that just doesn't happen, right? And this is the most insane part of it is why not just talk to each other? Why not bring these groups together and let them hammer this stuff out? That would be the best way to get some proper nuanced positions from these people, is make them have to sit and look at each other in the eye. Some of the representatives from these groups, and maybe Elon Musk and your Jake Tapper, right? Bring them all together. And you would find out by people just having that kind of a conversation in real time. You'd find out, based on just listening to the things that they're espousing, who is being more honest, forthright, and ethical in their stance, or putting more critical thought in it, right? Not going to hold my breath in terms of waiting to see that happen. DeSantis responded by refusing to condemn Musk, telling Tapper that he would not do so because I have no idea what the context is. That's That's a good idea. Don't condemn someone just based on third party or rhetoric or hearsay, right? Now, I actually want to find out exactly and precisely what he said before I condemn him. That's a very poignant and nuanced position to take, and a proper one at that. I know Elon Musk. I've never seen him do anything like that, he said. I think he's a guy that believes in America. I have never seen him indulge in any of that. So it's surprising if that's true, but I have not seen it. So I don't want to sit there and pass judgment on the fly. Seems like a very well-reasoned response to me. Nowhere in the post that Musk was responding to was there an explicit anti-Semitic conspiracy theory involving pushing replacements of white. Tapper did not read Musk's several follow-up posts, including where he said the ADL unjustly attacks the majority of the West, despite the majority of the West supporting the Jewish people in Israel. This is because they cannot, by their own tenets, criticize the minority groups who are their primary threat. It's not right and needs to stop. You sick, right? You right that this does not extend to all Jewish communities, but is also not just limited to ADL, Musk later added. And as you see, these are actual quoted, right? This is what the CBC should have actually done, is use actual quotes of what Musk actually said, right? Then you would actually get the proper perspective. Then at least you could think of things from the proper perspective. Musk. And at the risk of being repetitive, I am deeply offended by ADL's messaging and any other groups who push de facto anti-white racism or anti-Asian racism or racism of any kind. I'm sick of it. Stop now. Seems like a good response to me. Ben Shapiro, founding editor-in-chief and editor emeritus of the Daily Wire and host of the Ben Shapiro Show, defended Musk on his show last week over the controversy, saying that Musk made a rather large Twitter boo-boo because he was not specific enough with what he was talking about in his initial post. So even Ben Shapiro, who is not only is he a Jewish man himself, and unapologetically so in terms of his defense of the Jewish people, right? But also been on quite the tirade in terms of pointing out or pushing back against anyone. Just bring up Candace Owen, right? In terms of anyone that says anything that he perceives as even remotely negative against Jewish people or the state of Israel. Because that's another thing we got to talk about too, folks, is those who represent the state, and then there's the Jewish people. Just like with the Palestinians. There's those in Hamas that represent that particular group, and then there's the Palestinians, right? That's the beauty of dealing with people as individuals rather than just blanket statements reference everyone based on the fact of, what nation state, what plantation they happen to reside on, right? Anyways, but the fact that Ben Shapiro is even defending Elon Musk in this particular example, when it's very personal for someone like Ben Shapiro, I mean, that tells you a lot right there. And we all know that Ben Shapiro is not the kind of person that will shy away or back down from anyone, including Elon Musk. If he genuinely thought that Elon Musk was even remotely being racist or anti-Semitic or any of that crap, he would have called it out. Of that, I have no doubt. I will just point this out too, is not just Ben Shapiro and others, though, is don't let the fact that it's personal cloud your judgment. Once again, I recognize we're all fallible human beings. We're all going to make mistakes. And even this whole conflict right now between Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens, hopefully cooler heads prevail and they find some way to work through their disagreements, because it's really vitally important that, once again, I mean, we got to look at it in terms of the people who are anti-establishment, anti the status quo, and the people that seemingly, for the most part, talk about all myriads of subjects relating to liberty and freedom with good faith perspectives and arguments, right? So let's try to keep that in mind, that these people that we're talking about, the anti-establishment types, most of them, I see and perceive of them as always trying to not just bring a nuanced position, but genuine good faith arguments. So can we all try to, once again, keep the emotions in check? And I get it. We all have them. They're going to rear their ugly head, especially in situations like this, especially when it can be personal. But after, a minute or two, take the time, and then, work through that stuff in your head and come up with a proper nuanced response that isn't attacking each other. That's something I would definitely and highly suggest. Just a recommendation, folks. So it is true, obviously, that certain Jewish organizations, so this is Ben Shapiro saying himself. So it is true, obviously, that certain Jewish organizations have bought into and promoted things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, which are gross distortions of the American dream, Shapiro said. Nobody hates DEI more than I do. There are certain Jewish groups that are liberal in orientation who have supported that sort of stuff. Many of those groups have also pushed for open borders. It is also true that some of those organizations are now realizing post October 7th that actually open immigration for people who hate Jews on an intersectional basis was pretty stupid. Well, once again, and of course, I've talked about mass immigration or the constant influx of illegal asylum seekers into not just Canada, the US, but in the Western world. I've covered that extensively too. Once again, just go through my past videos and live streams, and you'll get all kinds of examples where I brought nuance and an ethical lens to the equation each and every time. And it has nothing to do with who the immigrants, what country they came from, the color of their skin, what's between their legs, right? Or what particular religion they practice. It's the fact that the state is force. We always got to keep this in mind, folks. The state government is a representation of force. And because of that, right? Immigration, asylum seeking, the welfare state, redistribution of wealth, right? Picking winners or losers in the economy, social policy, all of those things. When we're forced to associate, when the state forces us to associate, right? We don't have freedom of association anymore. When that happens, the state is always and forever will be at the core of all of these conflicts. That is the unbridled truth and factual statement. And I would argue it to anybody. And I've got all kinds of evidence to back up my claim. It's called the real world that we live in. I don't have to live up in my mind. I can just point out countless and countless examples of that reality unfolded, not just now in the present, and many, 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 many times in the past, but you'll see it going forward into the future as well. The state is at the heart. It's at the core of all of this division because, once again, the state is force. So people, whether it's your opponents that are going to use force against you or you seeking to use force against your opponents, statism is the most destructive religion or cult, whichever way you want to define it, on the planet. And that, my friends, is the one area where people who are perceive of themselves on the right or left or anywhere in between, that is the area where we got to meet up. That is the area is, once again, let's take out that big, giant proverbial gun in the room. Let's put that off to the side for now while we can have our conversations. Once again, it's really, really hard to try to get along or have peaceful, flourishing societies when you always know or perceive as people around you, rightfully so, as constantly you're looking to use the power of numbers and the power of the state to beat you over the head with their ideas or ideologies or their way of doing things, right? That one size fits all, which is the state at the end of the day, is what is so destructive. If we all acknowledged each other as sovereign, personally responsible individuals, most, not suggesting all, bad things are still going to happen to human beings, but most of it would be greatly reduced by sheer fact that that personal accountability and responsibility thing, Yeah. It's a real big kick in the ass for people to hold themselves a lot to a much higher standard than what they're doing today. That is just an unrelenting and undeniable fact. Okay. The problem with the original tweet is that it labels Jewish communities en masse. So my community, for example, pretty Jewish, has always opposed DEI and open borders. In fact, most Orthodox communities do. So once again, I'm glad that he's bringing some nuance to the table. So pretty Jewish has always opposed DEI. So yeah, so my community, so some in your community, Ben, and I get it. You're trying to be nuanced, but even here, it's a little bit more. Yes, for sure. This is the thing. This is the thing, right? With generalized statements in these particular examples. If you don't bring nuance to it, sure. Just like myself, I use generalized statements from time to time, but always followed up and emphasized with a more nuanced perspective that points out the exceptions and outliers and stuff. Because, right, that's the only way that we're going to be able to have proper communication with each other is where we're not straw manning or creating these fallacies, right? These impossible fallacies that constantly are seeking to pit us against each other. Shapiro then wanted to read Musk's follow-up tweets, something that Tapper did not do, where Musk was more specific about what he was talking about. That's a much more specific point, and it's certainly true, Shapiro said. There are a lot of liberal Jewish organizations that support a lot of the same policies that have now imported a lot of people who really hate Jews and Westerners into the West. And a lot of the very same people who are pushing DEI intersectional politics are now realizing the wages of that. That's true. The original tweet was wildly overbroad, but a huge number of people in the media decide now was the time to link Musk and the alt-right and the so-called Jewish question and support the notion that Musk is some sort of crypto-Nazi. Now, it's not a coincidence, again, that a lot of people doing just that are happily calling for Israel to cease fire in its war with Hamas, he continued. See, very often anti-Semitism becomes a political football. When you can hang the label on Donald Trump or Elon Musk and you're on the left, you do it. However, when you're forced to denounce pro-Hamas protesters shouting from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free, suddenly they get a little shy. Thus, the same media leaping on both Trump and Musk has been downplaying the open Jew hatred and massive pro-Hamas protests around the world, instead propagating lies about Israel's supposed human rights violations. Instead, they're focusing on their political enemies like Trump and Musk and deeming them the acolytes of Hitler, he concluded in the clip, which Musk shared on X. Meanwhile, the actual Hitler acolytes who are out there waving Mein Kampf, they're like, those people are oppressed and brown. It might have more bite to hit Trump and Musk for supposed anti-Semitism if these people actually spent some actual time talking about the people who actually like Hitler on the planet Earth, who are right now holding some 240 Jews and others hostage in Gaza and killing 1,200 people and have subjected the Gaza Strip to complete hellish tyranny for the last 20 years. But a lot of these same people are totally silent. So anyways, folks, I'll just bring that off. But once again, even there, and of course, these are all going to be linked in the description of the stream below. But I would suggest even there, right? Even with someone, and we'll get to that actually right now, with someone shouting from the river to the sea. Well, let me just bring this up since it's already been brought into the live stream. Let me bring this up because it perfectly segues right into this. This is obviously a post from the National Post, an article. All right, let me make sure. Okay, yeah, it's all good there. Headline: Charge stayed against Calgary pro-Palestinian protester who chanted from the river to the sea. Jewish activists say the chant is a clear demand for Israel's destruction. This, once again, is a repost or share of the Canadian Press, November 17th, 2023. The lawyer for a man who was charged by Calgary police after repeatedly chanting a phrase used by pro-Palestinian activists say the case has been stayed. Wisam Cooley, who is 32, was charged following a protest at City Hall earlier this month with causing a disturbance, and a hate motivation was applied. Police alleged he repeatedly used an anti-Semitic phrase while encouraging the crowd to follow along. Cooley's lawyer, Zachary Al-Khatib, says he received notice from the Crown Prosecutor's Office today that the charge has been stayed. No one from the prosecution office could immediately be reached for comment. Al-Khatib said has said it appears Cooley was arrested for chanting from the river to the sea. Palestinians will be free. Al-Khatib said he doesn't think there's anything hateful about calling for freedom and equality for Palestinians from the Mediterranean Sea to the Jordan River. But Jewish activists say they hear a clear demand for Israel's destruction. Yair Slack, president and CEO of Jewish advocacy organization Federation CJA, said he considers the phrase an example of hate speech. Israel is bordered on one hand by the Jordan River, on the other side by the Mediterranean Sea, he said. When you have people chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. The question I would pose is, where do the Jewish people go? I mean, I can see how you can make that link from both sides. The problem is you can't be inside the minds. This is the problem with these pretenses of hate speech or suggesting that a phrase such as that is automatically, inherently an advocacy for genocide of an entire people. No, you have no idea what kind of thought processes were going on in that man or woman's mind. I believe it was a man mind who was chanting that phrase. Maybe that person genuinely doesn't believe that they have to kill all Jews for the Palestinians to be free from the river to the sea. Maybe the elimination of statism, maybe the elimination of states and state actors and their constant conflict with each other, maybe if both sides weren't pointing the big giant proverbial gun at each other's head on a constant basis, right? And having constant rhetoric espoused, which whips up these kind of feelings of hatred and resentment and things, right? And once you bring the religious aspect into it, that's the thing, right? That's the area that's most detrimental to both groups. But you cannot suggest or pretend that this person, by simply shouting or chanting a phrase such as from the river to the sea, Palestinians will be free, automatically at all times from all people means that they're advocating for genocide. I'm a human being who would never advocate for genocide for anybody, any group, any tribe, any race, any collective. And I can see how saying that phrase, especially from people who maybe that's all that they've been told what that phrase means, is you want the people of Palestine to be free. If that is what has informed your opinion and your perspective, is because you believe that phrase just means that someday we'll be able to be free from the state of Israel imposing themselves on us, right? Or, although I would suggest that should also include, the PLO or Hamas, because if you're Palestinian, it's not just the state of Israel that you may perceive as oppressing you in any way, but your own, that very group, that very state, or those who claim to be your rightful ruler or the status among you, are also a detriment to peace and prosperity in your country and all around the world. That, once again, folks, is the reason why if you're Palestinian or Israeli, you both should be coming together and saying, listen, let's show how it's done. Let's show how, as long as we're not, using the state to batter our opponents, that yes, we probably can get along just fine. Matter of fact, I've known people throughout the course of my life who live in very close proximity with each other, who practice very different religions, and they get along just fine. Why? Because even if their religions vehemently disagree with each other, If the core, at the very core of your ethics, of your morality, is the golden rule, treat others how you'd want to be treated yourself, well, or the libertarian philosophy and principles of liberty, the non-aggression principle. Hey, as long as you're not using violence, theft, or coercion against me, you do your thing. And I may very much vehemently disagree with you, but as long as it's just words that we're espousing and we're not actually using violence towards each other, which is whether it's personal violence or the state, which is the most violent entity on the planet, right? Then, we can peacefully coexist. That not only am I sure of based on some speculative thing that's rolling around my mind, but I've observed it in my real life, in the real world. So yes, it can be done. The problem is, and what we're seeing today is the thought leaders and seemingly even some of those who usually genuinely take a nuanced statement because it seems more personal, or they're trying to virtue signal to their tribe or people who they perceive on their side of the political divide, is even some of them are now shying away from the prominence of taking nuanced, properly informed perspectives. And you know what? I'm quite saddened by that fact. I'm quite sad by the fact that people who typically choose to say and do the right thing, even when it's difficult, are seemingly taking the easy road out or allowing their emotions to overwhelm, their logical brain or the reasoned arguments that they would typically bring forth. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see what we get here. So anyways, so once again, and I'm just going to say it right now. So you get it. It was a guy, the charge was stayed against this person, right? From saying words, is no longer charged with hate crime. And you know what? I'm thankful for that. That's terrible precedent. Even if I were Jewish myself and I was like, oh yeah, it's good that person, how dare that, right? Even if it's someone I perceived as my opponent, this is the thing about freedom of speech. Even someone like that, right? And even, let's just say, even if that person, right, does in some way, right? Here's another thing I'm going to bring up. Even if that some person has even heard other people say, hey, you shouldn't say that because other people might perceive that you're saying you should genocide them, right? Even based under U.S. constitutional law and the First Amendment, there would have to be a real, genuinely perceived and direct threat that might happen by these words being espoused by this gentleman. Right? Is this person in any position to make that a reality, to bring that to fruition? The full genocide. Does he have a military somewhere? Right? Does he got a bunch of militias that will just do everything he said? Then you might have some area where, yeah, this person's is toying with that very fine line in terms of advocating for violence, right? But this judge, and I believe rightfully so, based on what I've read about it so far, this person just chanting these words at a protest, or maybe even having those words on a sign, right? I would say that the judge in this particular example made the right choice by staying those charges and not making that precedent setting. Trust me, folks, battering your opponents over the head with the proverbial club of the state, with the courts, might seem like a good idea when you're the one that's getting the leg up over your opponents, but it's not so fun when the shoe's on the other foot, which is why, once again, people like myself, libertarians, people who take the proper ethical stance on these things, the nuanced stance is, yes, don't play these games. Don't go down that road to start criminalizing speech unneeded or unnecessary. So anyways, I'm just going to jump back in. I think we got some pretty good stuff there. There's a few more things, but I just wanted to get in here and see what's going on in the chat. Once again, thanks to all you folks who joined up. And sorry, I'm going to try to keep myself right here. So I keep the mic working good. I'm not sure. Okay, here we go. Hamas is the militant wing of a genocidal ideology. How are Jews supposed to defend themselves from people who use civilians as shields without killing innocents? Listen, it can be done. It really can be done. Have you ever seen hostage situations? Now, that's not to suggest that it can be done. It's not a Sunday movie, so not everything is going to play out perfectly where no innocent civilians are going to die. Nobody's even suggested that, in particular me, although we would all hope for that, right? We all, at the very least, hope that innocent people don't die from either side of this conflict, right? But yes, there are. Listen, as a Canadian, let me just point out right now, in Canada, there's a Canadian gentleman. I can't think of his name right now, but what was it? 3 kilometers, 3 miles. The sniper that took out a bad guy. What was it? One of the ISIS dudes or something like that. If I remember, it's been a long time, but from miles away, right? Don't tell me that it's literally impossible to go after these people without, at the very least, greatly reducing the potential for civilian casualties, right? This is the problem with having big, giant, massive conflicts and mobilizing, entire units of the military. For a gang or group like Hamas or ISIS, for that matter, right? That which was another example in the past, or Osama bin Laden and his group. Any of these people that brought violence and destruction to other countries in the West, such as New York and stuff. The best way, and I even said back then, so my position has not changed, is why send in the military, the entire the entire might, or not the entire might, but the full force and might of a large regimented military. When for these kind of targets, right, that aren't particularly standing armies, more ragtag militias or gangs, right, or groups, I think the proper way to deal with those people would be, once again, specialized forces, right? Smaller groups and contingency groups that, can handle situations much, much better and with much more precise retaliatory force. That to me, I think, now, once again, if it's all about expediency, right? You can make the expediency argument. Well, if we bomb the fuck out of them, even if we kill civilians, the more destruction we cause, the mayhem we cause, well, there's more chance we'll get them quicker, right? Because some of them might get away or something. So we just want to get it. But that's the thing. That's the thing. Unless you're advocating for killing, was it 2 million Palestinians in Palestine? Unless you're advocating for killing all them, which I would suggest now you're genocidal, right? Which I'm not suggesting you are, but I'm just thinking out loud here. So since that's not the case, well, don't you think by killing a lot of innocent people who they themselves, and their family members, just like the Israeli people on both sides, right? When innocent people are killed, their family members, the people that care about them, are going to be really, really pissed off and want retaliation against those who have done so. So just like with the old thing with the war on terrorism. Well, how'd that war on terrorism work? Seems like it created more and more people who want to use terror as their means to an end, right? You don't prevent ideas, right? Ideas don't die. You can kill off some people, but those ideas will live on and reside in the minds of the people, the family members, the spouses, the children, right? The grandparents, the cousins, the uncles. It'll live on in the memories of those people, and they will themselves now want to seek out retaliation and use force against people they perceive as their enemies or opponents. So once again, an eye for an eye, folks. I hate to point this out, but it leaves us all blind. Once again, I think a more nuanced, proper way to deal with those evil, vile Hamas militants who killed those innocent Israeli Jewish people, target them people as best and most precise as you can. Because that, not only then are you actually getting the vengeance on the people that have caused grave harm or killed your loved ones or the people in your community or in your society, but you're greatly reducing the potential of further conflict or retaliatory force being used against you or the people you love, right? That's a good thing for everybody involved. And yeah, once again, I said it. That's the whole That's why I called this live stream my unshackled and undeterred thoughts. Because yes, I'm very much aware I'm going to get pushback from both sides. But as I've always done, or people who are taking perspective or stances from two different sides, right? But yes, that's why I do what I do. Because I find it's really, really important in situations like this and all situations that deal with human conflict is to bring a more nuanced, proper ethical lens to the table and really focus in on pointing out and clarity in what all this means and how to properly think about these things. Anyway, so yeah. Actually, that made me think of something else. What is this thing that they've been fighting about for a long time in that particular jurisdiction, right? The two-state solution. Well, might I offer up an alternative? And I think it would be more beneficial to all involved and at least create the chance or the prospect for much more peace and prosperity for all. And that's a zero-state solution. And since I'm on the topic, how about we get rid of the states entirely? Because once again, states are the most violent, inherently so. Those who represent the state are the most inherently violent and evil people on the planet. Even those who pretend or suggest they're not. Once again, the state represents violence. So, as far as I'm concerned, this two-state solution, I guess until humans have all, humans even from that particular part of the world have finally thrown off the shackles themselves, both in the physical and in the mental space, in the mental capacity, thrown off the shackles of enslavement to the state, whether it's their mind, their body, or their material resources, is until that has happened, I suppose the two-state solution is something that people will continue hammer on and talk about. But once again, I would definitely recommend that they start thinking more about a zero-state solution. And not just for the Palestinians and the Israelis, but for all of us sovereign human beings, almost 8 billion of us sovereign human beings. Not to suggest that conflict will cease to exist entirely in the absence of the state, but I can say with 100% clarity, based on all historical precedent, is it would massively reduce it. Because for every one person that an individual has killed, the state has done it to an order of magnitude much, much higher, right? So if you care about people, whether they're the Palestinian people, the Israeli people, or just any person or people in general, no matter where they live or reside, vacate the state. Get rid of that state of mind. Start perceiving and look at each other rather than collectives, tribes, or groups, but as individuals within. Now, that's to suggest we can't all be part of some forms I'm part of a family, the Hunter family, my particular, and I have other families on my wife's side, the Taylor family. I have lots of family people or groups, but I'm not forced to associate, right? That's all through voluntary choice. Whereas the state, it's forced association. It's an automatic scenario set up specific to create warring factions. And that is always and forever has been and forever will be a recipe for disaster, just like we're seeing today. Anyways, but yeah, thanks for bringing that to the conversation because I love some pushback because once again, I like to think in real time about these things. And I don't suggest that I am the end all be all in terms of knowledge, in terms of these things. Once again, I'm just thinking about thinking out loud. This war is religious between people who want to kill the Jews and Jews who don't want to be killed. This war is religious between people who want to kill the Jews and Jews who don't want to be killed. Well, there's some. See, this is where the nuance thing has to come in. There's some religious between people who want to kill the Jews. Yes, there's some people want to kill the Jews, right? Not all of them. And yes, those people, once again, some of those people use the auspices of the religion or their background or their history, and the pretense that they have legal claim over that land or just genuine claim over that land or whatever. Yes, some people, but not obviously not all people, not all Palestinians want to kill Jews. I can't believe that I have to say that, right? That's, I mean, come on. Once again, I mean, and the other thing too is to suggest that, are you really going to tell me or suggest to me that there's not one Jewish person alive in Israel that wants to kill Palestinian people or would want to kill a Palestinian person? Right? None? Zero? Right? You're setting it up. You're setting that up as an impossible scenario where one side bad, the other side good. Right? And I get it. That's an easy one. But that's the thing. Why go with the easy thing? Why go with easy? Because I don't know. Are you surrounded by people in your particular group, in your in group, that will be mad at you if you brought more nuance to the table than like I do? Well, see, that's the thing. I would never surround myself with anyone that would have hate for me or what, not be my friend or be mad at me if I didn't take a position. It's like, okay, I'm picking this team for sure. It's like, once again, that's why I deal with individuals. And I'm pointing it out now that there are some individuals, the ones that did the bad deeds are the bad people, right? But I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, I'm on all Jewish people's side and screw all Palestinians just because, right? My team, my tribe. Never done that before. I don't even do that for my own family. Even my own family, the people I love, the blood that courses through my veins, even for those people, I hold them to a high enough standard that no, you don't get my blanket loyalty just by sheer fact that we share the same fucking blood, right? Or family tree. No. Matter of fact, how I've managed to have such amazing, great people in my life is by the sheer fact I was willing to weed through all those people. The ones that, hey, you don't want to hold yourself to a high standard? All right. Have fun, enjoy yourself. You do? All right, we're good. That's how I've managed to get to 53 years old as of last week, November 10th. Yeah, that's how I managed to get this ripe old age and still, and actually even more so, surround myself with some of the greatest people, the greatest minds, the greatest individuals that I have personally ever known, right? Because I hold myself to the high standard, so I lead by example, but I also make sure I hold the people that I surround myself with the same standard. And if I had someone in my life that when I was bringing this kind of nuanced perspective to the table, we're trying to suggest that, oh no, you got to pick one side or the other, I'd say, well, what? Wait, what? But I would never have that happen. Why? Because at least they know. And that's the thing. Dankus Memeless, I'm pretty sure you've been in the chat enough times in the past when I've done live streams to know that it's all goodwill here. It's all good faith arguments, all good faith perspective. I don't have ill intentions toward any one of these. I have no personal knowledge of any of the individuals involved. So to me, I'm just bringing my typical nuanced, ethical based stance to a difficult topic of conversation. That's what I'm doing. But anyways, but yeah, for sure. I mean, hey, once again, I'm not mad at you for having your perspective. Everyone has a perspective. You're not advocating for anyone to genocide anyone. Say, hey, your opinion is your opinion, and you're rightfully entitled to your opinion. I won't hate on you for it. I'm just going to offer a little pushback to you. That's all. That's it. That's all. A two-state solution was already tried. It's called Jordan. Yeah. Yeah. Well, once again, as I said, I'm not a fan of the state at all. So it's me. That's not a solution as far as I'm concerned. Not a good one, anyways. Zero state solution. Yeah. Yeah. That would be, as far as I'm concerned, that would be a better approach. But it's not like I think that's going to happen anytime soon. I'm just saying that it'd probably work a whole lot better, right? In terms of affording or allowing for peace, or at least peaceful solutions among individuals, among large groups of individuals who live in very close proximity with each other. Is uh, Get back to the golden rule. Stop relying on the state. That's what I would recommend. Right? Let God, let the ethics be your authority. As long as those ethics are underpinned by universally consistent principles, right? Then once again, that's the beautiful. Then you don't even have to use religion. Although I would suggest that a religion has failed any of those who have practiced if it doesn't, at the very least, bare minimally uphold the golden rule, right? It's a shitty religion if it doesn't bare minimally uphold the golden rule of treating people the way you want to be treated yourself, right? Or not to use preemptive force, violence, theft, or coercion towards your man, woman, fellow man, woman, or child. If a religion fails to uphold those or underpin those ethical stances, then it's a pretty shitty religion as far as I'm going. As far as I'm concerned, maybe try using a different one or none at all. You know, one that's like, once again, libertarian philosophy, the philosophy of liberty. It's not a religion. It's abstract though. So it could almost be perceived from people who are not familiar with it as some kind of ideology, but in reality, it's just what I perceive of ethics is I try to use the scientific method, right? To me, ethics, the universal ethics is use the scientific method to test your hypothesis and your thesis, right? That's to me, that's the great aspect of the philosophy of liberty is you don't even necessarily need religion. Although I think something else does have to come out of that, right? Because there is a little bit more nuance. There has to be a little bit something extra brought to the table. So and that's where areas where we libertarians are trying to, figure this stuff out. Now, me in particular, I have my Christianity, the ethics of Christianity. And I'm talking about the kind of Christianity I was taught growing up would be more New Testament type of stuff, right? Post-Reformation and stuff. So not so much smiting thee in the Old Testament stuff. So more nuanced, more of that truly genuine universality in terms of ethics that I think that the New Testament does much better than the Old. But once again, we're all trying to figure this stuff out. So at the very least, once again, even for us here in this conversation or this chat and me doing the live stream, once again, let's just spitball back and forth with each other for sure, push a little back on each other going to say, but just I expect and hope of you folks, and hopefully you expect of me, that I'm coming at this with good faith arguments and reasoned logical stances that seem to be based on an ethic that I firmly believe in. And that's all. That's all. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Using the term anti-Semitic in this case is stupid. Both Jews and Arabs are Semites. Well, yeah, I'm not getting into all that stuff. Anyways, let me just check and see if we got. Okay, no, wait a sec. Okay. ADL is far left trash. You're right, though, as usual. Well, thank you very much, Justin Turdo. I really appreciate that. But yeah, well, that's the thing, that group. And I would even say and suggest that there might even be people within the ADL, just to be more nuanced myself, right? So I'm not painting everyone with the same broad brush, because I surely don't want to be accused of the things I accuse others of doing. And if I am, I'll correct it and try to bring more nuance to it, but I'll do it right here. There may even very well be, I don't know everyone in the ADL personally, but there may even be some people in the ADL who do bring more nuance to the table. But apparently they're not the ones that are contributors to some of the rhetoric that I've seen and folks like yourself have seen espoused in the past. So yeah, I'll bring that to the table as well. And thanks for bringing that out. Okay. There are 1.8 million Muslim Arabs living in Jerusalem. They're more free in Israel than in Palestinian territory. That could very well be true too. That very well could be true too, right? I can't say one way or the other. That could very well be the truth. The Islamic State wants a stateless solution because borders are an impediment to their global conquest. Well, that may be, but the Islamic State are themselves calling a state, right? So, right? I judge people based on their actions and their deeds rather than, they want a stateless solution, but yet they call themselves the Islamic State. Well, if you want a stateless solution, I would say bare minimal, don't call yourself a state. So, I mean, what I don't know, right? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there may be some people, once again, we're talking about a lot of different individuals, right? So I don't like painting with too broad of a brush. But once again, if you're using the word state in your identifier of your group, don't come at me saying you want a stateless solution when you're identifying as a state, because I'll call you out on that. And I would do that, although I don't expect the Islamic State to have any conversation with me anytime soon. But you kind of get where I'm going with that, right, Justin? Like, uh, that's why they team up with the globalist Marxists. So no, and I'm not even doubting that some of the people have some bad intentions, right? No doubt. But the state, right? Listen, there's lots of things to be fearful of, and people to be fearful of. But like I say, the power of those people is greatly and drastically reduced in the absence of a state apparatus, right? So I just got to point that out. There's always going to be threats. There's always going to be threats. But once again, that threat is greatly reduced. It's a matter of going from, a 50 cal, right, which is the representation of the state, all the way down to an airsoft, right, in terms of lethality or the potential lethality when you're talking about the state versus someone who doesn't have the state to back them, right? An entire military force, right? Because that's the other thing. Was the state represent? It's not just the mindless order followers of the state. It's the fact that the state claims to be the ultimate arbiter of what money is and the issuer of money, which what pays for all of these conflicts, right? Kind of hard to have all these wars if you don't have money to pay for all of these weapons and machines of war, right? And the state is the one that claims to be the ultimate creator and issuer of currencies. So once again, the state is genuinely, and its tentacles is what is the biggest threat and the biggest force on the planet that we really should be concerned about. Once again, what some people think about, some disgruntled people calling themselves Hamas or claiming to be victims of the patriarchy or the Jewish people or whatever. Yeah, those people aren't going to be nearly as severe of a threat without a state apparatus. And that's the other thing. Where did Hamas get all their money from? Now, I'm not even, I've listened to where some of that's come from. I'm not even going to get into it. But you can rest assured that it came from stealing from a whole lot of other people, right? Or other state actors propping them up or giving them money, right? Because it benefits them geopolitically or in some way, right? So the state, at the end of the day, is what's making this massive conflict much more severe and the outcome much more detrimental and destructive than what it could possibly even remotely potentially be in the absence of the state. YouTube might have hidden my comment. I wrote 3 before Turtle's comment about Hamas. Change it to live chat instead of top chat. Live chat, top chat. It's just chat. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait, is that on the YouTube, you mean? Hold on 1 sec here. Let me check here. Popular chat, community moderation, participants moderate, timestamps. Oh, top chat. Okay, sorry about that. Live chat. Well, good for pointing that out. Thank you very kindly there, Dankus. Actually, that's good of you to put that on there because I did not notice that. But thanks for pointing that out. Top chat, right? Top chat. Wait, now let me go back that again. Oh no, that's live chat. Top chat. Wait, no, it was on. All messages are viewable. Some messages such as potential spam may not. So no, I'll go to live chat. Wait a minute. What did you say to do? Change it. Yeah, change. Yeah. Actually, no, I think it was on live chat, right? Now it's on. Yeah, live chat. Okay, there, live. Yeah, live chat. Yeah, so we're good. So let me go back here now. But yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Right on. Now, let's see here. Agreed. Shoot, not sure what we agreed with there, but glad we agreed. Here we go. Islam encourages terrorism. The Palestinian Authority called for genocide against Jews, yet they're supposed to be the moderate ones. The problem is Islam. Well, once again, so the Palestinian Authority, right? So the people that claim to be the rightful rulers of the place they call Palestine, right? So once again, it's the state or people who represent the state. So I'm with you. And Islam encourages terrorism. Some aspects of Islam for sure. And that's the problem with people when they interpret, rhetoric from whether it's the Bible or Islam. I mean, people back in the day, I just got to point this out. Growing up, a lot of Christian fundamentalists that I knew growing up, they used the Bible and the words, the actual words written in the Bible as an excuse to advocate for doing some very terrible things to people that let's just say like gay people and stuff, right? They're not even worthy. I mean, think about Sodom and Gomorrah, right? God destroyed the cities because of these people who are so sinful and stuff. Damn, that's quite vicious, right? Like, yeah, they were doing some bad things for sure, but just killing everybody, that's bad, right? Genociding everyone for sinning. Oh, what's the point of free will then, right? So that's the thing. Religion, and that's why, like I say, philosophy. I am not against religion at all, but always put a philosophical lens against any of the religious teachings that you might have heard of, or the way to properly interpret them is put that philosophical, that ethical lens, put it under the scope of ethics, right? The lens of ethics, right? Put that under the microscope so it's right up close so you see it really clear and concise. The ethics that underline, because that's what I've done in my life. Because once again, if I just went by the scriptures in the Bible, boy, I mean, slavery. I read the Bible recently, not too long ago, actually. It was the last year or so. And I got to tell you, there's an awful lot of advocacy for slavery in the Bible, in particular, the Old Testament, right? So, I mean, come on. That's the thing. Religions, right? Especially that were these religions like God himself or Muhammad or what was it? Or sorry, Allah, right? Didn't write this shit themselves, right? No, it was human beings that wrote and interpreted this stuff. So fallible human beings, right? That's the thing. So that's why, because these things are all written and under the auspices of a fallible human being. Once again, put it under the ethical lens and then interpret it using that lens. And I would say it'll definitely help you in a long way because for sure, Islam, certain aspects of Islam encourages terrorism. But I have to say, so do some aspects and area of the Bible in certain ways. So once again, and I'm the kind of person that, yeah, there's some great teachings in that Bible. But that's where I'm wise enough and old enough, fortunately now, and thought about this stuff long enough to think, yeah, I don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I just got to make sure that if it doesn't line up or adhere to an ethical lens or underpinning or a proper principle, then yeah, I'm not going to necessarily adhere to that. I'm going to find other ways to figure this stuff out, right? And I would recommend for all of us. But yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you with the fact that some of these religions advocate for some terrible things. Islamists would eradicate all the Jews if they opened the borders. They launched almost 10,000 rockets in Israel over 3 days, and there would have been much more damage without the Iron Dome. Oh, no doubt. Sure, for sure. Yes, some Islamicists, right? Well, especially if you're talking about Islamicist or Islamicism, once you bring in the ideological aspect of it, then I would say you're correct in that assumption for sure. That some of them probably would advocate for doing that, right? No doubt about it. And those people that would eradicate or even suggest that that's a thing to do, yeah, those people right, need to be dealt with appropriately and properly, right? Yeah, I trust me. I wouldn't want to live next to anyone that wanted me dead or a group of people. Like if a bunch of my neighbors wanted me dead, yeah, that's rough. That's rough, right? And those people need to be dealt with. And if they genuinely are advocating for the eradication or genocide an entire people. Once again, not just under American law, right? I don't even just need American law, the Constitution or the First Amendment to tell me that, yeah, you got to be careful around people who want you dead, right? And there's nothing wrong. The Bible has always suggested that, and even any proper ethics suggests that there's nothing wrong with defending yourself against those who want to kill you. And especially and particularly if there's a genuine threat, right? A genuine threat is not just a construct in your mind, but genuinely perceivable threat that can come to fruition, right? Just like I would suggest if I was, walking down a dark alley some night and some guy jumped out, pulled a knife, and went to put it, and it was heading towards my throat. I'm going to tell you, I'm not waiting till he actually, slashes my jugular for me to respond. I'm not going to keep my hands tied behind my back. I was like, okay, I can't do nothing until you actually, poke the jugulars till it actually penetrates the skin. I'm not doing anything. No. If there's a direct and imminent threat to your life, properly perceived as much, self-defense, there's not a darn thing wrong with it. Not a darn thing wrong with it. Matter of fact, I definitely advocate for you defending yourself against anyone who's trying to kill you or wants you dead. And they have the means, right? Because that's the other thing. There's lots of people say, I mean, how many times in your life have you heard people say, oh, I wish that person was dead, or I'll kill you, motherfucker, or some shit. But it's just words. It's just rhetoric, right? Just someone trying to be boisterous or boisterous or whatever. You know what I mean? Trying to pump up their chest, right? But if there's a genuine, direct threat to your life, yeah, you have the right to defend yourself. Hey, what's going on, David? Hey, thanks for joining the stream. Yeah, really appreciate that. Hope all's doing well with you. Thank you very much, sir. First comes Saturday, then comes Sunday. Delta Mail. First comes Sunday. First comes Saturday, then comes Sunday. Not quite sure what that one means, but thanks for joining the stream there, Delta Mail. Okay, I'll just get a few more comments in here. I'm not an anarchist. Cultures have a right to defend their homes. Oh, 100%, for sure. Definitely don't disagree with you with that. Matter of fact, I am a philosophical anarchist, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. So see, you can be, right? You can not be an anarchist, right? You don't have to be an anarchist. Just like I don't have to be a statist. The problem is I need for you to own up to, but would you advocate for using the state against me as long as I live my life peacefully and don't use violence or theft towards my fellow? As long as we agree with that, although that's going to be really hard for if you're an actual statist, right? Because although minarchist, we can have that conversation. Are you a minarchist? I would ask. A minarchist. Because then it might be just that you falsely believe that there's such thing as the night watchman state and that it will only restrain itself to doing as much. And in that area, I would just say, well, magic doesn't exist. Santa Claus isn't real. And a benevolent state it's an illusion, man. It's an illusion. And I get it. It's not like I think that everybody's going to come around to accepting or adopting my thought processes on these subjects or this topic, right? I get it takes everyone a certain amount of time to figure this stuff out on their own. And I don't even expect that you're just going to say, oh, well, Bennett said it, so it must be right. Because then that would make you a conformist to what, and you just fall for anything. So just think about these things critically. And I guarantee you, if you do it long enough, just like myself, you will come to the realization and conclusion, I believe anyways, that the state, once again, the state is the problem, right? It's easy to write things on parchment or paper or have some kind of a thought experiment. It's like, well, what if we just create this night watchman thing? We'll call it the state, and and we'll constrain it and restrain it with these rules. We'll call it the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, and it'll only be able to do the things that we tell it can do. But then you have to believe that no one will ever interpret that to being something different than what you even hoped it meant. And once again, I will just point out with actual real world evidence That when has that ever existed, right? When has the state never advocated for preemptive violence, force, theft, or coercion? When has that ever happened? Where is this state that exists in the entire world, right? That doesn't use force or theft or coercion as its means to the end. You're not going to be able to point to any. Now, there's some people who are trying to experiment with these Liberty Land or Lieberland and all this stuff that are trying or attempting to create some stateless society. But so far as I know, most of them have not been successful in the way that we would hope them to be successful. But it's not because of the lack of trying. It's because of the fact that there's other states. Right? Once again, even with the people, and I recognize even in terms of if Israel and Palestine, even if they all agreed, okay, we're going to create a stateless society, well, you're still going to be surrounded by more states, right? So you're still going to be, even if you could find a way to create a stateless society or a zero state solution for the Palestinian conflict, well, you're still going to be surrounded by a bunch of other states who probably will do some terrible things or, once again, use violence, theft, or coercion to, once again, take over your particular lot in that, or particular land, right? So there's no easy answers other than it's a long-term endeavor to get human beings, because really at the end of the day, freedom, liberty, it's a state of mind. And what it is we need more and more human beings to be in the state of mind where the state, in terms of government, is not the center of society, is not the authority, right? No, this is an area, and this is where libertarians, anarchists, voluntarists, philosophers, hey, even I would suggest some psychologists, lots of people all over the world are right now in real time trying to figure this stuff out. Because obviously, if it was easy to figure out, or to vacate the state, or to quash statism, it would have been done already quite a long time ago. Because the 20th century showed how detrimental statism can be, to the tune of what, tens of millions, maybe hundreds of million people dying all over the world as a consequence of the massive rise of statism, right? So I get that it's a difficult and nuanced conversation that's far from done or has been concluded. It's ongoing. We're all trying to do this in real time. So I'm very thankful for all you folks bringing all this stuff to the table. Really appreciate it. Anyways, got to make sure I'm keeping my mouth in front of the mic here. All of Islam as an ideology does. It doesn't matter if individual Muslims don't. Well, that's the thing. Islam is a religion. It's not a person, right? So even something laying on the ground like a piece of paper that says you should go kill these people, let's say, it's a paper. It's a piece of paper with words written on it. It can't do anything. It's it's not a threat to any of us. Words written on a parchment paper or on a screen are not a threat to us. The individuals who would follow out, right, those orders, or do that based on that ideological lens, right? That individual or those individuals, those are the people, right? And I'm with you. We're all against them. We're all on board. But Islam, once again, Islam is a religious construct, right? It's words written in a book. It's faith based. It's a religion. It is abstract. It is not a tangible thing that you can point to that's going to cause us any harm. Once again, that's where you got to separate this stuff out. But the individual, it doesn't matter if individual Muslims don't. Well, that's the thing. If a Muslim doesn't follow the Islamic faith to a T, then I'd say they're the kind of people that I can get along with, right? Matter of fact, I've known Muslim people. I know Muslim people, and no, they're not bad people at all. So, like I said, that's why I deal with people as individuals. I don't really care too much about these other aspects. It's how are you as an individual, right? Religion, the state, which once again, the state is just another form of religion. I thought you folks, I thought most of you would have watched my streams long enough to know that the state, when you're talking about religion, the state is a religion. Stateism is a religion. Like I say, some people call it an ideology, religion, a cult. Same thing. It's a belief system, right? It's a belief system. So, once again, what people do with their belief system, the actions they undertake, that is the key factor. What they think, how they perceive as others, of course, it would be nice if we all perceived each other as if we was all kumbaya and we're all holding hands. That's never going to happen, right? But what are the actions? What are the deeds that they undertake? Do they use force, violence, coercion, or theft towards other people? If they do, then they should be rightfully punished for doing so and retaliated against for doing so, right? I mean, that's the other thing about Christianity. I got to bring this on into the equation as well is we can't perceive of people, even bad people or people that do bad things, right? We can't always and forever play the, the cancel culture game either. I believe that a lot of people, even people who have done bad things, some even very bad things in their life, are redeemable and can potentially get to the point where they can be forgiven and have repentance. That's something that I actually learned from Christianity. That's one of the great things that I learned from Christianity is not to just cancel people or want them destroyed or cease to exist or lock them in cages because they do something wrong. I mean, depending on the severity, right? But I do firmly believe that most people, hashtag not all, but most people are redeemable, can do better. I mean, I've done bad things in my life myself. Nothing like what these, uh, whatever you want to call it, Islamicist or whatever the Hamas guys, nothing like what they've done, right? Obviously. But, I've done bad things in my life and I found ways to correct them. I've even been punished for the things I've done and I've corrected my course and actions as a consequence of that. So, yes, of course, people should be punished when they do wrong, but I just don't get into the whole cancel culture thing where they're just irredeemable. They're just because they're part of this faith. Well, there's just nothing that can be done. It's just either they've all got to go or we've all got to go. Or once again, I like to bring a little more nuance to it. But, anyways, yeah. So let me. I don't take any sides. I don't believe in wars with an agenda, which I hear Gaza has abundant underground resources, as did Iraq. But I do believe in individual self-defense. 100%, David. And I'm right there with you. Right there with you, 100%. And I don't take any sides either, other than, well, I kind of do take this side in a way, but I'll be nuanced with it. I'm on the side of every single innocent individual who have not advocated for violence against their fellow man, woman, or child but are suffering needlessly as a consequence of others that have done so, right? That's where I'm at. That's the stance I take is stop causing harm to innocent people for the sake of the state or for those who do evil deeds on behalf of whether it's a state or a religion, right? That and yeah, for in that area, 100% we're in agreements, David. Well, that's the thing. You can be anti-Jewish. Even if that was true, Justin, that most Palestinians are anti-Jew, it's part of their religion. I mean, you could be anti something, right? Without advocating for violence. But I would say, and I would suggest now, if I was in that area and interviewing, let's say I had got the chance to interview some Palestinians or Jewish people for that matter, but let's just go with the fact that you brought up the Palestinians. I'd like to ask them, are you genuinely anti-Jewish people? Do you just hate all Jews? Or let me just think about this for a second, but is your hatred, your unjustified, and if they answered yes, if your unjustified hatred or disdain for the Jewish people, does it come from a place where maybe you've been told some terrible, terrible things by maybe people in your own community that led you to the belief that all Jewish people are bad? Because I would genuinely, if you find people that are genuinely, these Palestinians that genuinely are just anti-Jewish, I would suggest it's more than likely because of the rhetoric espoused by their thought leaders, maybe some of these Islamicists or religious fundamentalists in Hamas that have such they're so vile and do have genuine hatred and disdain for people just based on their immutable characteristics or their heritage or background, that they are the people, right? Just like today in Canada. I mean, think about, listen, there's a reason why there's a lot of people today, even some people who even have white skin themselves, but have been taught to be self-loathing, to not just hate themselves, but everyone else that shares that skin color because of other people in their community. And it's horizontally enforced, not just through the institution and structures that they've gone through, but even in their own families, environments, and communities. They keep telling them the wrong things to perceive others as nothing more than representatives of their particular tribe or group. There's much more subtleties and nuances to what it is to be a human being, more than like, I'm not just a Canadian, right? This happens to be the plantation that I was born and raised on, but there's a whole lot more to this guy than just saying I'm Canadian or I'm white or I have Irish or Scottish heritage, right? There's so much more to me than that. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a decent, caring, compassionate person. I'm a competitive spirited person who really enjoys off-road sports and racing. And like I said, there's so many things. I could spend the next hour or two just talking about all the things that represent me as a person. So yeah, there's, like I say, some of these people or most of these people, or even if you suggest all these people might be anti-Jewish, but are they all advocating for the destruction of all Jewish or abolition of all Jewish people, right? And if they are they doing it because they too have been propagandized and mentally and psychologically manipulated by some terrible, nefarious people, right? That's what happens in every state and in every country around the world. This happens. The us versus them. Once again, all I'm saying is the true us versus them should be based on the individual actions that each person undertakes or the kind of person they are as the individual, right? That's all I'm suggesting. Oh, are you 53 too, David? Right on. Right on. Cute. Yeah, I just turned 53. I'm kind of lucky with the whole birthday in November. Last week, November 10th is I get almost to the end of the year, right? I was 52 all the way up to November 10th. Right? I stretched it out as long as possible, but yeah, cool. All right. Yeah, but that's the thing. Like I said, I can read the Bible and show you verses in the Bible, but it's up to the individuals who interpret those verses in the Bible, just like the individuals who interpret this chapter 9, verse 29, or even if the chapter 9, verse 29, just like in the Bible says, that you should kill, you know, it doesn't matter. If your religion tells you should kill people preemptively who haven't done anything to you, right, personally, your religion sucks, or at least that part of it does, right? So this is where free will and giving people that personal accountability, that responsibility, laying that right at their feet. That's what I'm doing. I'm laying it at the feet of each and every one of us. Is you are personally responsible for what you do, for your actions, right? And of course, your thoughts too. But if your thoughts don't lead to anything violent, you can think some bad things. People think some bad things about me for sure. As long as they're not going to bring violence to fruition and use that against me, you can think terrible about me if you want. I would never seek to control how you perceive of me. I could possibly influence that some way by giving or maybe having a conversation with you, maybe showing you that maybe I'm not the kind of bad person that maybe other people have told you that I am. I mean, come on, gossip. Really, what you're talking about, whether you're talking about from the religious text or just other people gossiping, yeah, just because other people tell you, oh, this person's bad, you should hate them. Or this person doesn't deserve to live. Well, whether it's coming from words written in a book or another human being speaking out their mouth verbally, I have personal autonomy and personal responsibility. I have free will. I have autonomy. It's up to me what I do with that kind of information, right? So once again, that's what I'm bringing to the table. Well, that's just tribalism, right? Same with I agree with that too, David. Quran is peaceful and in taqiyya deception until they outnumber, then it's jihad. That's majority or mob rule, right? For sure. For sure, in any situation, especially when you're talking in terms of the state, the majority, show me any state where the majority, it's not under the pretense where the majority rules over a minority, right? Even in some of these states, like in the Middle East, right? Iraq, predominantly Sunni, they dominated over the Shia and the Kurds, right? Because they were the majority in that particular jurisdiction. Same with Iran, majority Shia, so they dominate over the minorities in their group. Same with all of these places. In Canada, holy fuck, here's Canada. The majority, I'm ruled over. Ever since I've been a kid, ever since I was born, I've been socially and economically enslaved by the majority, by the mob. And a lot of them even share my skin color. A lot of them even share my heritage and background. So yeah, I'm totally against the large groups bullying, intimidating, or ruling over minorities. That's why I'm all about the sovereignty of the individual. I recognize, and I agree with you there. Once any group becomes the majority, are they going to want to subject themselves to the minority in a particular jurisdiction? I would say no. Not saying that's impossible. There's always the exception of the outlier, but no. As a general rule, the majority in any jurisdiction is always going to seek, to impose themselves on the minority, which is why, once again, even the pretense of multiculturalism sounds good in theory, but how does it work in practice, right? Not so well, because that's the thing. The state allows, that's the thing with forced association. Perfect example. Let's use Canada, right? Let's say we get to the point where Islamist fundamentalists become the majority voting bloc in Canada. Do you not think that Canada is going to turn into a more Islamist oriented state? Sure, right? Doesn't matter which fundamentalist group or ideologically driven group you're talking about. That's the case in Turkey. The Turks, right, rule over whoever the minority groups in there. Same within Greece or Italy or England or yes, the majority rules over a minority. And even though people have thought of this in the past, perfect example, the U.S., which is a country founded not on your background, heritage, or history, but based on, supposed to be fundamental rights and the respect of the sovereignty of the individual for the most part, is even it, right, has turned into basically mob rule, majority rule. That is the one underlying aspect of statism that has always happened. And there's no example where it hasn't. So yeah, I'm agreeing with you there. Got to watch out for the mob, for the majority. Sodom and Gomorrah had no righteous people living in them. God would have spared them even if there were 10 righteous people. Same thing with the Canaanites. God gave them generations to repent. Well, I mean, you could say that based on things that were written down, right? But can you honestly say there wasn't one person in those two cities or whatever they were called back then, where they've been called towns or cities? Anyways, do you have any firsthand personal knowledge of that? No, none of us can, right? These are stories, and they're meant to be taken away. Like the overarching message is usually what you're supposed to emphasize on, but some people get too much into, like, I think you're reading too much into it, that there was nobody and none of them. So let's even suggest that all of them were not righteous. Well, God gave us free will, right? And the whole point is of why hell exists is that's when you're to be punished, right, for your sins. Right? I don't remember reading anywhere in the Bible where it advocates that if you've been unrighteous at any point in your life, well, you should just die. Even if you, because everyone has the potential to be saved, to be forgiven, to repent, and to eventually do the right thing. Now, of course, there's some areas where you could be correct, but once again, I can't pretend that those verses in the Bible, and I should take them in the literal sense. So that's how I deal with my fellow man, woman, and child. And I would suggest that since you're not in prison for killing the unrighteous among you, as far as I know, right, that you don't take that stuff 100% to heart either. Because I can tell you there's, you know, unrighteous people all around us doing some very evil, vile deeds, right? For sure. I mean, think about the people that do terrible, despicable, unspeakable things to children. They live among us, right? That's a reality. That is a reality. And as much as I'm so against that stuff and would do anything I can to help out anyone if I could under the situation to protect or defend anyone from the vile deeds of these terrible, vile people, there's no part of me where I would think, well, just because there's people that have bad thoughts or want to do bad deeds that I have or have done bad deeds in the past, that I should just have the ability, the carte blanche ability to just wipe them all. No, no, no. Once again, there's so much nuance in this stuff. And that's why, like I say, and that's why I'm not even suggesting we're going to all figure this out tonight. This live stream is not going to end with us all figuring this stuff out and walk away saying, okay, mission accomplished. We're done here. It's not going to happen. And once again, I just like you folks, and I'm glad you're doing this. Really do. And once again, I appreciate the pushback, but this is why we're doing this is to, there's things that I might have thought about that you're bringing to the table, which I'm grateful for. And hopefully there's some things that you haven't thought about that I'm bringing to the table. But yeah, thanks again for bringing this up. Oh, okay. First comes Sunday, first comes Saturday, then comes Sunday, is the Muslim saying. First they kill the Jews, then they kill the Christians. Yeah. Well, once again, some people for sure, right? For sure. That's what I see. More people can be free if more people have courage to resist the state, but that's not the case. Nah, I hear you. Oh, I know. And once again, I deal with reality. So I know that. I'm aware of that. I'm in Texas, so it's probably no surprise that I'm Christian in case you don't remember that. Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, I consider myself Christian as well. Right. But what it is, and I always emphasize with people is what it is I take the part of me that's Christian is the part that my grandmother who read me the Bible when I was a kid, and then also when I read the Bible as an adult, and some of the great stories contained within it, is I take those things, I abstract out from the good ideas, and I sort things out, right? So that I pick the things that I was taught from the Bible that pass muster in terms of the ethical lens, the universality of that. Yes, and I adhere to them. And I'm very grateful for those things and learning those things, right? But the areas where it's not consistent and seems to be more collective and not nuanced, then I reject them. Just like with laws written on the books, right? If they created laws in Canada that said, "Oh, you must go kill these people," it's law. You must obey the law, right? Right. Of course, everyone suggests you got to obey the law, but what if the law says you should go kill that person over there just because they have a different skin color than you, right? Or because they're from a particular background or heritage? Well, I would say that no, I'm not going to follow that law. That's unjust. It's unlawful or immoral and unethical. I don't care if you say it's legal and it's just because you called it so. I have my own mind. I have free will. I understand ethics fundamentally. And that's what guides my opinion, my perspective, and who I am as a person. So yeah, I'm with you there. But the Saturday and Sunday, well, I mean, the people that think like that, like those are bad people. Or they're thinking some bad thoughts. Have they put that into fruition? I don't know. Because like even some of the leftists that would like to genocide the white people. And yeah, there are some leftists out there, some, some of these, even some of those, there was, I think some people even represent some of the Black Lives Matter protesters that would like nothing more than get rid of white people en masse, or at the very least, flip them into being the oppressed, right? But once again, people thinking bad thoughts about me or even hating on me, right? Unless they have the means at their disposal and I perceive their threats to be genuine and imminent, oh, whatever. Go ahead and think as much bad things about me as you want. Insult me as much as you want. Sticks or stones, right? Sticks or stones. Yes, for sure. I know what you mean. And like I said, I would even suggest that everyone in this chat, I would hope so at the very least, even though we're kind of having a little bit of disagreements and some pushback, which, like I say, I'm fine with that. I would suggest that everyone within this conversation, this chat, is on the side of the innocent always, and that's why, like I say, I like the kind of people that typically I surround myself with the people that typically watch my content. But once again, I would even be willing to have a conversation with people who maybe, you know, maybe have more nefarious justifications behind their opinions or perspective. Oh, thank you very much. Just appreciate that, Hoser. Thanks. Oh, 52 in a month. Oh, you're younger than me then. Yeah. Oh, you're just a kid. No, I'm joking around. But it's so funny. I talk to some of the older guys. Oh, I'm going to be 53. Oh, you're just a kid. It's like, am I ever an adult? It's just like the state. Am I ever an adult, you fuckers? I'm fucking 53. Like, I'm not just a kid. Maybe to you, I guess it's all about perspective at the end of the day. When you're old as dirt, I guess 53. No, but it's funny. Shoot. Uh, if someone votes for someone who promises to gas Jews, you're just as responsible. Yes, to a degree, except this is the thing, right? I mean, did the people vote for them because they advocate for the violence and they want to kill Jews? And if that's the case, and that can be proved so, then yes, you're correct. But are there any Palestinians that maybe voted for whoever just because they believed in their mind that that was their path to freedom, to sovereignty in some sort, right? Surely at least one, right? Or a few, right? I would think. Because a lot of people in Canada, or at least the people in Canada, either they're lying to me or everyone's fucked up when it comes to the state, right? Which I suppose that could be the case too. Is did everyone vote for Trudeau so that he would invoke the Emergencies Act on truckers, or so that he would cause so much destructive harm economically to so many Canadians, or that he and the other premiers, did everyone vote for the premiers? Um, or yeah, because think about it. Trudeau, we had another election during COVID. So, and after that, there was already, mandates and restrictions and lockdowns. So did every liberal who voted for Justin Trudeau, and he said, like, if you vote for me, like more or less, I'll go after, I'll make sure the unvaccinated, and how he was going to target all of us unacceptable people with unacceptable views, the fringe and all that shit. Did all liberals vote for Trudeau for that, hoping that he would, come down heavy-handed on people like myself? Some did for sure. Some did for sure. But I'll even be gracious enough to accept the fact that there's probably quite a few liberals who voted for liberals just because it was in their own personal interest, because it benefited them both socially and economically, because he aligned with them ideologically, or like I say, for the power of the purse, right? Because hey, he butters their bread, right? That's the thing. When people go out to vote, some people just vote based on one thing, right? And some people are single issue voters. And those people, if they're single issue voters in Palestine and they're single issue, and the only reason why they voted for what is it, Hamas, I guess, or whatever, was because they promised to wipe out the Israeli people or the Jewish state or something, then those are terrible people. Those are terrible, terrible people. And hopefully they do better, become better people at some point in time in the future, right? Or if not, well then, hey, they're your enemy. They're genuinely your enemy, and treat them as such. But once again, I can't pretend to know that all people in Palestine that voted for that particular group did so for the sole purpose of hoping for the elimination or wiping out of an entire group of people. Can't say that. Same with, can't say that all the people that voted for Netanyahu all did it for the simple fact that he's going to be very, very heavy handed in reorganizing or reorienting how the Constitution, how the judicial system, and all that stuff plays out in there. Some of them might have been single issue voters that did vote him for that sole purpose, but I would suggest, and probably be correct, that some of them voted for all a very different myriad of reasons. Right? That's the thing. That's the thing. I don't know. But the people who do, once again, so just know. So all these things that you're bringing up, if the things that you're bringing up are people genuinely advocating for violence, preemptive violence against people that haven't done anything to them, who are innocent, then they're bad people. No matter how many examples you bring up, I'm still going to agree with you. They're bad people. But we can't say with that blanket statement that all Palestinians are precisely in that. Because I would suggest that's pretty bad if you're going to single out one particular group and say that they're all just terrible people and they're irredeemable. That kind of sounds like, it almost kind of sounds like, and I'm not suggesting you're doing that, but that was kind of the rhetoric that Hitler used in terms of getting the people of Germany to have such hatred, resentment, and loathe the Jewish people, because he painted all the Jewish people then, right? And here's me once again. So this is another perfect area where this is me defending, well, at least the good Jewish people, but pointing out the very real fact that Hitler, and he convinced, it must have been a pretty convincing argument, right? Because, I mean, are we going to suggest the German people are all fucking dumb fucks or something, right? I mean, even if you think that the Palestinian people, not saying you are, but even for some of those things, well, the Palestinians are just so uneducated, so illiterate, so ideologically driven or religious zealots that they all think in this way. Well, Hitler convinced millions of his fellow countrymen and women that Jews were basically, all so terrible that they had to be wiped out. I reject that premise. I would have, if I lived in Germany at the time, I would have rejected it. Yeah, I probably would have been the ones that died just like the Jews, or along with the Jews, for daring to speak with nuanced positions as I am now. Just like I'm willing, and I have the boldness and the courage of my convictions to say the thing that's got to be said now, knowing full well that the pushback I'm getting here, which is quite minor, and I appreciate that, because no one's offering up insults or derogatory statements. So I really appreciate you folks for doing that. And once again, massive kudos and applause for you folks, keeping things on the up and up like that. Because that's why I like doing this stuff, and why I really enjoy the kind of audience that I have these days. Now it's a smaller number, but I'm getting more and more on the inclination to think it's like, yeah, even though my numbers in terms of people that follow my channel are smaller these days, much, much smaller. And that was hard to deal with for a while. It's tough, right? But I got to tell you, you folks are head and shoulders above so many others that I'm actually quite appreciative of this. And I'm liking the pushback. I need the pushback because there's things that I might not have thought of, right? There's already, I think, a few things that you folks have brought up that I haven't thought of. But once again, I'm bringing a little bit more nuance to, just think of it. Us having this, if we were sitting around having a round table, although we're kind of doing that now, having this conversation, think about even people that are sitting on the sidelines just listening to this, who haven't even offered a perspective as of yet. Think about it. They're getting your perspective, they're getting mine, so they're getting a lot more nuanced perspectives than what they're getting, from most establishment, and even some of the anti-establishment, or those who are challenging the current establishment, right? The alternative ones, right? That's those in the alternative media and stuff these days. And I'm saddened to say a lot of those folks have chosen to put the binary lens of you're either with us or against us kind of lens on this whole thing. Because I think it's doing a great disservice to those of us who consider ourselves to be part of the intellectual journey of bringing or ushering in Enlightenment Era 2.0, right? I think we need to hold ourselves to a really high standard. And those of us who do, we might have to suffer a little backlash in the interim, but I think in the long run, I think we're the ones that's going to be, proven to be on the right side of things, At the end of the day, once again, because in the here and now, it's really, really hard because people's emotions get heightened and cranked up, so it's tough. But if we keep doing what we're doing now, and like I say, I love the fact that you folks are bringing some more nuance to it and some pushback because I need it just like anyone else. Like I say, I didn't get to the point where I am today without having to go through a lot of, oh shit, I was wrong about that. Oh shit, I was wrong about that. Oh shit, I got to reinvent my thinking and the line of reasoning in terms of that because I was totally mistaken back then. I've had to go through a lot of that. Matter of fact, if I even go back to some of my earlier days on social media, I was tricked by the activist leftists that I didn't know they were leftists or they had that kind of collectivist stance, right? And and I even cited them back in the day with some of this crazy stuff that I've come to learn about and be more nuanced in. And I see some of the posts, especially when Facebook shares of something from like 12 years ago. And it's like, oh, damn, I should have took a little bit more of a nuanced position back then. But once again, I'm much wiser than I now than I was then. And the only reason why I'm wiser now than I was then is because subsequent to that point when I took that stance, I listened to other perspectives and nuanced opinions. It's like, oh, okay, yes, I wasn't thinking of that. I didn't have that pointed out to me. Now, okay, now I gotta refine my thoughts and my stance on that. Don't that's how I got to be in the position I am today by going through all those uncomfortable changes, those growing pains. Yeah, they're tough at times, but I'm sure you folks have gone through it yourself too. And well, that's what it is, right? Once again, we're all fallible, unperfect human beings, and we're just trying to do the best we can. And like I say, as long like you folks were bringing good faith arguments and reason, logical stances to the equation, and good for you, good for you, good for you. Oh, I see Gato's in the chat. What's going on, Gato? How you doing, my friend? Nice to see you in the chat. You kind of, if you're just showing up now, you probably missed, I don't know what, probably about a couple hours. Actually, where am I at here? Oh, shit, I'm already at 2 hours and 16 minutes. Actually, I never noticed that I've already gone by this quick. Holy crap, there's a lot of comments. Here, let me, oh, what else? What else? What else? Okay, so we got the charges stayed. Yeah, geez, free speech. Oh, actually, I'll just bring this up. It'll be listed in the link, the description too. But this is another national post. JD to seal. Here, let me just bring it up. Not going to read too much, but let's just bring this up because I think this is a pretty good opinion. And I always like to give kudos and credit where it's due, especially when you talk about people who contribute to the established media. Like I've always said, there are a few. They are a minority, but there are a few people who contribute to some of the establishment media publications in this country who do bring a little bit of nuance and a little bit of pushback to what would be considered the dominant narrative or the status quo. And this is JD Tukil, or whatever. Free speech lets us know who the anti-Semites are. I oppose efforts to muzzle pro-Palestinian protesters because I want to know exactly who might target my Jewish loved ones. Well, hey, at the very least, even, right? That's another perspective where, yeah, yes. The more you try to tamp down or suppress speech, and this is the part where, yes, I would definitely and fully agree with that. Even for people that might want to tamp down, the speech of people that they disagree with in terms of this whole Israel Palestine conflict. Yes, let people say what they got to say. There's a lot you can learn from what they got to say. Now, it might not sound good, might come across as bad, but it could give you a leg up to defend yourself, right? I mean, I can only wish and hope that people who hate me would actually vocalize that, so at least I know. I wouldn't want to live in a community where I got a bunch of people that hate me, but they're not allowed to say it. So I falsely believe that they like me, and then they shank me when I'm not suspecting because I've been disarmed by the sheer fact that I have no idea what they're thinking about because they're not allowed to say it. No, I'm kind of in agreement here. I'd like to know what they're thinking. So at the very least, I know who to look over my shoulder for, right? Or at least do look over my shoulder. This was published November 19th, 2023. One of the great benefits of a strong culture of free speech is that you get to see who people are. Are your neighbors principled? Are they hateful? Are they just plain nuts and worth avoiding? When my son saw who attended dueling protests on his college campus in recent weeks, he didn't have to guess who everybody was. They put it all on display, and he's planning his interactions accordingly. Beautifully said. Well said, right? Well said indeed. In the United States, free speech culture prevails, however imperfectly across the country. At least tens of thousands of people gathered in the nation's capital on Saturday for one of the biggest pro-Palestinian protests in the U.S. since the Israeli bombardment of Gaza began in response to the attack by Hamas militants last month, NPR reported November 4th. Days later, supporters of the victims of Hamas's attack met in the nation's capital for the largest pro-Israel gathering in the U.S. since the start of the Israel-Hamas war, according to CNN. There was no love lost between attendees of the two demonstrations, but little confrontations either. The two sides had opportunities to air their mutual contempt and rally further public enthusiasm for the causes, doing their best to lean on politicians. They also gave us a good glimpse of who they are and what they believe in, so we can support those with whom we agree and shun others whose views we don't just oppose but find repugnant. All in all, gatherings like these are productive exercise in free expression and nonviolent outlets for passionately held opinions. I agree 100%. Freedom of expression serves its most important function at times of deep polarization, where the sense of righteous indignation tempts us to silence the viewpoints we hate with scant regard for the collateral damage to democracy, freedom, and tolerance that constitute the necessary precondition for social peace in diverse societies, commented Jacob Mchangama, CEO of the Danish human rights think tank Justitia and a senior fellow with the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. Not every country shares the American commitment to letting people fly their freak flags. France and Germany both banned pro-Palestinian protests. They justified the bans as efforts to prevent anti-Semitic outbursts. Pro-Palestinian demonstrations must be prohibited because they are likely to generate disturbances to the public order, huffed French Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin. Yeah, good luck with that. The protest predictably went forward anyway, and attendees rumbled with police while feeling virtuous about their defiance. Nothing makes people feel more like they're on the right side of a dispute like a whiff of tear gas. Right? So true. This is a great article. Great points here. That's a big part of why I oppose efforts to muzzle pro-Palestinian protesters, despite being married to a Jewish woman. I don't want them to be able to pose as martyrs for their cause. I also believe in the natural right to liberty, no matter what government officials may prefer in the name of order. And I have a strong interest in seeing who might hate my wife and my kid and potentially target them at a later date. Step forward and be counted, folks. As mentioned earlier, my son took his own notes at the University of Arizona. He called us to express his disappointment at a protest that wasn't just pro-Palestinian, but took on a tone in favor of Hamas. He was relieved that he personally knew few of those in attendance. He took solace when campus Jewish organizations organized a vigil for the hostages held by terrorists. Both protests were peaceful, albeit with a strong security presence. That hasn't been the case everywhere. A University of Pennsylvania student was charged for stealing an Israeli flag. Jewish students took refuge from protesters in the library at Cooper Union, and a Jewish man, Paul Kessler, died after a confrontation with pro-Palestinian protesters in Los Angeles. Worried about escalating rhetoric and conflict, Brandeis University rescinded student group recognition for Students for Justice in Palestine, saying its support for Hamas is unacceptable. There are boundaries to acceptable speech beyond which lies actual violence of the sort that led to Kessler's death. When it comes to post-October 7 protests, Willie Creeley, writing for the Foundation for Individual Rights and Freedom Expression, described the boundary as a fraught line. Now as ever, it is vital for all of us, students, faculty, administrators, alumni, law enforcement, elected officials, and the general public, to hold steadfast to the First Amendment, remaining both cognizant of its carefully defined exceptions and confident in its continued protections, Creeley wrote. Private institutions like Brandeis aren't bound by the First Amendment. They can make their own rules about expression. Still, they do well to abide by the culture of free speech so that we have peaceful outlets to keep ideas in circulation even if officially disproved or disapproved. And so hateful people can't pride themselves as resisting authoritarian restrictions. People should be able to tell us who they are. Anyway, so yeah, I'll take that off there. That was a great article once again. And I agree. That's the point of freedom of speech. And that's the point of, of having these kinds of stances is, yeah, that's another thing is, yeah, you want to know what people generally think about you. So that gives you the, at least the knowledge that you need to perceive of the world around you. Like I say, knowledge is power, folks. And it's really important that we bring as much knowledge, nuanced knowledge, perspectives, and opinions, and to ultimately defend individual rights and hold individual actors to account. Because at the end of the day, it's not groups that act. I mean, you can use that as the overarching, just like you could talk about a forest. But those groups, you know, are comprised of individuals within them. And it's up to us who understand the importance of personal responsibility and individual sovereignty to hold each and every individual to account for their actions and their deeds, as well as their rhetoric. Now, I'm all for, just like this person, freedom of expression and freedom of rhetoric, but that freedom of rhetoric or freedom of speech also comes with my freedom of speech to talk back, to say what I've got to say. That is vitally important, and that's key. It's not that I care about them per se, but I care about my freedom of speech. And my freedom of speech rests and resides on the fact that I have to allow them to have freedom of speech as well. Especially if we're going to live, and we are now, and we're going to be for the foreseeable future in these things we call democracies, right? Yeah, it's really important that each and every one of us hold ourselves to a rather high standard and not race down to that lowest common denominator or to allow tribalism or collectivism to take center stage and ultimately guide and steer our decisions, our opinions, and our perspectives. Not going to say it's not going to influence them. Not going to say it's not going to roll around in your head. Of course it is. People are emotional beings, but at the end of the day, I think most people, if given the tools and the information, will try to find a way for their own self-preservation and those they care about to figure out a way to live peacefully with the people around them, if they can, if it's even perceivably possible. Because once again, not out of benevolent reasons, but for their own self-preservation. Yeah. Even if you're a terrible person, right, and you would like to cause harm to a lot of people, ultimately, when individual accountability and responsibility is center stage, you'll restrain yourself by the sheer fact that people have the right to defend themselves. So even a person that wishes to do vile, despicable acts on another person, it's not that you need the state, it's not that you need law enforcement, but what you do need is sovereign people, individuals willing and capable to stand in full defense of their own personal rights, freedoms, and liberties. That's what keeps most bad actors at bay, right? Self-preservation. That's the thing about libertarian philosophy. We understand human psychology seemingly better than most. Anyways, folks, I'm going to tie this live stream up. It's already 2:30, but I really appreciate all you folks joining up. And thank you, Gato, for coming. I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to get to your comments, but like I say, I've already been into this 2.5 hours. But once again, I'm back now. In case you didn't hear, I'm back. I'm going to be doing live streams quite regularly. I'm going to be, so there'll be lot more probably to come out, at least, as more information comes to light. Might even cover some more areas and aspects of this particular conflict, this particular story. But thanks to all you folks who did show up, and not just show up, but actively engage in such great dialogue. Thank you for bringing all that to the table. Really appreciate it. I enjoy the pushback. Once again, thank you for holding me to a high standard, high bar, and I'll in turn return the favor. And once again, have yourself a great rest of your evening. It's Canadian Libertarian. And in addition, actually, before I say that, I genuinely, truly, for the people of the world that just are just like you or I and just want to go through life do our thing, enjoy our loved ones, find some meaning and prosperity, and do the things that really fulfill us. For all those people in the world, yes, I stand in full solidarity and support of them, and I could care less. I don't care less. Or I mean, I could not care less about the color of your skin, what particular geographical portion of the map you rest or reside, right? Your heritage, your background. At the end of the day, I, as a libertarian, seek to judge you as the individual you are and the actions that you do and the message that you convey. And I accept that you're fallible just like I am. So let's, like I said, try to find a way for most of us to try to come together better, find the mutually exclusive things that bind us and unite us rather than those subtleties or those things that usually are unneeded and necessary that divide us. And once again, I'm going to emphasize the fact that it's state versus state violence. And yes, there are individuals who are part and parcel of that state or carry out the orders of the state. And I'm not picking sides here at all. I'm just saying that it is the state at the end of the day that causes for the most violence, the most unethical things that have ever taken place in human history has happened at the hands of those who are firm believers in the state or statism. So let's try to once again get back to respecting each other as sovereign individuals. And I believe that that won't eliminate, but greatly reduce the kind of conflicts, not just in our personal and social lives, but intergenerationally and geographically as well. Anyways, folks, have a great night. See you in the next one. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.